everybody, and welcome to this edition of the inspir'em Persona series. I'm Emma Maslen. I'm the CEO of inspir'em. In this series of webinars, we've been interviewing all sorts of C-suite individuals, and with the idea that these are your economic buyers. So what we've been doing is talking to the C-suite about what are their challenges, how can you get in their diary, and some of the things that interest them that can help you get some favour with some of these individuals. So just a reminder of how these webinars run. So we're going to be talking to Jason Andrew today, who's the CRO of Trellix. We'll be asking Jason to do a bit of an introduction shortly, and then we'll be doing a bit of prepared Q&A. But there is an opportunity here for you to ask questions. So please do feel free to put questions in the Q&A section of the Zoom, and then we'll come to those and answer some of those questions. Also, as a reminder, we've got a CMO interview that is next week. We're joined by Serial CMO, who's going to be working with us. So it's 9:30 UK time next Friday. So if you'd like to join the CMO one, all of these are all recorded and they're available on the platform as well. So if you have missed any in the series, then worth having a look. In the January series that we're running, the last plug that I'll do is that we're going to be doing a pipeline generation series. So it's going to be a series of 6 webinars. 6 webinars that we're running from the 10th of January around building your pipeline reconciliation plans and coaching you to getting your plans together.
The good old PRPs.
Absolutely. Although we are going to call it PGP rather than PRP.
Nice.
Because, but that is the plan for January. So if anybody wants to join those, then please do let us know. Without further ado then, welcome Jason to the webinar today. Lovely to see you. It'd be great to just share a little bit about your background, just so for the audience, just to know who you are, what you do, and where have you come from.
Oh, thanks, Emma, and hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, maybe even good evening. I first of all want to say, Emma, we worked together for a while, and I was thinking about it this morning. I think it was Victoria office. I don't think it was out in Winnish or Egham or whatever. I was walking through the office and you were doing a training on champion selling. And I remember just like poking my head in and having a look, and you were talking about, definition of a champion, and you're sort of going through it. And I thought, ooh, and I sat down. I think I sat there for like 2.5 hours. Like even all that long time ago, you've still got this natural ability to sort of train people or educate people and cut to the core of what needs to be done. So, yeah, so I'm Jason Andrew, Chief Revenue Officer here at Trellix. Second time CRO. I worked at BMC for a long time. I think the big thing about working at BMC, if I really sort of put it through in a snapshot, started as a software engineer, did a stint in R&D because I thought I was a techie and I wasn't. Had a background in accountancy and moved into the sales side. Actually enjoyed it. Got to learn from one of the masters, John McMahon, Luca Lazaron, and that crew, and then embraced it. So I did an APJ, EMEA, and Americas views, which is kind of unique to get to lead 3 different geos and then get to do worldwide. So gave me a great representation on how different the geos are, not just culturally, but from a buying behavior and the way people, sell and the way they consume. So now at Trellix Cybersecurity, my goodness, that's a white hot market space. You've got to be on your toes every minute. There's so much happening. But yeah, I enjoy the profession, I think, more than anything else. And I enjoyed learning about it all the time, trying to learn about something new to do with the sales profession.
No, that's great. And thanks very much for the kind words about my champion training sessions. There's nothing
I've still got the slides.
I'm sure you have. They're very old now. There's nothing more unnerving, though, that when your boss comes and sits in one of those sessions, for sure. I always remember when I was at SAP and Scott Torrey came and sat in one of my forecast sessions. He said he had tremendous fun, but I have to say it was less fun for all of us sat around doing that forecasting. And actually, I can see that Lisa's on, and Lisa was in that session, actually. But anyway.
There you go.
Yeah, so you find yourself in a really interesting position, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, where you're talking to economic buyers every day, and you are an economic buyer as well. So for purposes of sort of where we originally went with this series, it'd be great to understand, a little bit about what you're thinking about as being a CRO economic buyer, and so how people are getting in your diary? What are they getting in your diary talking about?
Yeah. Sometimes when, like you said, like I've got 2 EB conversations today, go no go conversations today, and you put yourself back in your shoes when you're in this situation. I've got 2 or 3 things that are really important to me in the next 6 months, right? So the list of things that a CRO may be interested in, you talked about pipeline generation. So what's a faster, cheaper, more effective way to build pipe or quality pipe? I might have this whole list, like 50 things that I'm really interested in, but at this present time, it might be 2 or 3 things that are really key to me, right? Like really key. We've hired 123 people this year, right? So onboarding talent, enabling talent, how do I get them productive quicker? Anything that can help me with that problem is top of mind, right? So first and foremost, and again, it's a cliche. You ask me questions, you got to find out what really is interesting me. I know what it is, but you don't, right? So, my why anything, you come at me, cold call me, or you cold email me, you just spam me. But if you go and do your research and you see that in cyber, what I'm doing and where we're doing, that you just look at what Trellix is doing, it's obvious to see that we're recruiting, right? So come at me with anything about people. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I'm not going to be the one. I'm going to have gatekeepers around me, what we would call champions. All right. So you get me and I respond. I might like it. The first thing I'm going to do is probably push you to my ops leader, because my ops leader probably owns the tech stack. Right. They own the rev tech stack. They're the one that's going to be, does this work? Does this fit in? Is this part of what we're doing, or is this something completely different and new? So I'm evolving what we do. I'm not doing a revolution. I'm doing an evolution. So he or she will be the gatekeeper on that next part. So be prepared beyond me. Even if you come to me and you say, hey, I'm not going to say the person's name. Hey, I'm gone to this person's team, and because some of you are sellers out there. And then the third thing I would say is, when you get to me, speak the language that I speak, right? I know that, again, these are cliches that maybe seem really obvious. And I think we all learned it in 101, because I will push you to talk to the person that you sound like. All right. They will push you. I will push you down to you. If you sound like the finance person, I'm not going to talk to you. All right. I'm a sales leader. I do know about it, but I don't want to talk about that. I mean, those 3 simple things. Find out what I'm really interested in. They sound really basic. Be prepared to not deal with me immediately. I'll push you to someone else that you'll have to develop as a champion. And then third and foremost, sound like me. Talk to me in my language. Don't come and talk to me like someone else, because I'll send you that way.
Yeah, no, they're really great pieces of advice. And like you say, it sounds like it's really simple stuff. But, this is, I mean, one of the reasons why I always enjoyed Medic and MedPick, and like any other sales methodologies that are out there. The thing is it's there to be a reminder, because we're all human talking to humans, and we forget, we get completely whitewashed as well, brainwashed by, what our organizations are saying and thinking as well. So we sort of, yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day. I've got a lot of new salespeople, and what is the gen now? Is it whatever the letter is for the generation now, right? So I've got kids
maybe.
that 22 to 26-year-olds, right? Maybe first or second sales job. So one thing I'll say to them is, like, what's the biggest purchase you've made? And let's say it's a television. Okay, you bought your first big giant flat screen TV. What was your criteria for think of it like spin selling? What was your criteria? Well, I wanted an 80-inch television with, all this stuff and internet connected. And then I said, okay, so then you started looking at the wall that it was going to go on, and you don't have an 80-inch wall in the room that you can put it in. And you went, okay, I can probably only do 48 inches. And then you went and looked at, like, well, I've already got, this device that's internet connected. So you in your head, so you were going through the same buying behavior when you made that really big decision that you made. That's what we do. It's the same thing. I want all the tools that are out there. They all look and sound amazing when you first come to me, but I can't do that. I'm going to look at what my process is, what the flow is, where my people are at. You might have the coolest AI engine, and I don't even know what product I'm selling. Right. So just think about where I'm on my journey. like you were when you were buying that big screen TV, and it relate the two things together.
Yeah. No, that's really great advice. And I know we talked about this on the pre-recorded webinar before about some of those meetings that you've been in and what that conversation's like when you go and meet with an economic buyer. I am curious though, because you mentioned this at the beginning around your bio about some of the differences between some of the regions and the buying processes. I was wondering if there's a couple of examples you could give of what it's been like for you dealing with an economic buyer that's in Asia versus an economic buyer that's in the US.
Yeah, so those are the two extremes, right? I think so like if you looked at EMEA, UK, France, and Germany, they're the big markets. So every single vendor is there, and every vendor is there typically en masse, right? They've got a lot of people. If you go out of those, you've got, sub-regions, sub-countries, depending on the size of the company you work for, where you as the seller might only, if you're working in the Benelux, or if you're working in the Nordics, it might be you and two friends, right? That are the sales team. So EMEA has three big countries, and then it has sub-regions, right? So first of all, you think about that. APJ is the same. North Asia, South Asia, Asian countries and ANZ buy very similar. ANZ buys closest to the US, although it's a lot of social or relationship selling. So it still happens a lot in Australia and New Zealand that you go to lunch when you're selling. It doesn't happen quite so much in other parts. That never happens in like the US. That's you typically do it after the sale. That relationship building, you've got to be really careful and unique about how you do it. It's normally about adding value more than, whining and dining. North Asia is a very big trust game. You normally have to have a partner involved because the partner's probably worked with or for that company for 20 years. So you being brought in for the first time, it's probably not going to happen unless you've got someone that says, yes, Jason's a good person. So you've got this regional cultural mix in EMEA. You've got North and South, so AZ and ANZ buying behavior different from North Asia. And then you've got the US. It sounds really simple. One language, three major time zones, 3.5 time zones, East Coast to West Coast. But you've got the West Coast that's bleeding leading edge. That's the tech hub, right? So anything on the West Coast, you better have a product that is the advanced version of what everyone else is doing. On the East Coast, that they're hard buyers, right? I don't know if it's just like I'm stereotyping a New York thing, but they're tough to sell to. And then you've got the Midwest or the middle of the US, and they literally they're probably more a relationship created a relationship. It's it's a bit more about trust than anything else. You get treated like dog meat on the East Coast as a vendor. You get treated for innovation on the West Coast, and in the middle, it's about trust. So I don't know if that helps, but I'm culturally, like if you're the EB, if you're selling to an EB, like I think about CIOs, I think there are maybe 5 CIO personas. There's the CIO that's the accountant, and then there's the COO that's the visionary tech guru. If you go and sell and you message vision tech to the finance CIO persona, they're going to go, what are you talking about? Likewise, if you go the other way, I don't care about cost. I care about what I'm going to be in 3 years. Same as when you're selling in a region or you're selling in a country or you're selling in a geo, understand, be very sensitive to culturally what happens inside that environment. I've got an EB call when we finish, and one guy is in Houston and one guy is in London. Right, I've met both of them and I've Zoomed with both of them, and I know they're very different. So it's going to be an interesting call because they come from completely different views. I'm going to try and meet in the middle, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's really great, and it's great to understand some of those differences because many of the people that we're working with, obviously they're working with companies that have got people in different regions. They're not necessarily in the economic buyer is not necessarily in the region that they're in. So it's useful for people to understand that perspective around, how different things are for sure. So we've got some questions that have come in already. First question that we've got, which is what's the one thing that you wish you had learned in the first 2 to 3 years of your sales career that's actually now proved critical to your sales success?
I'll say the one thing I learned, but before that, I'm going to say I wish I was brave enough to be a salesperson from day one in my career. I worked for a company that really didn't have, it was in New Zealand, right? So we were more consultant selling. So we actually would sell billable time. So we'd go in and consult. And then I kind of realized about 5 years in that I was doing all the selling as well. But I was never really brave enough to carry the, I thought I was an engineer, right? I wish I was brave enough earlier. I tell people now, I kind of learned the proper art of selling as I got, to the end of my 30s, right? I think I was doing it just through, character and building relationships and kind of knowing what I did, but I didn't know the actual science behind the art. And then when I learned it, and when I say science, like working for John McMahon and Luca, and then being involved in, I think, the second or third force management engagement around medpic and value-based selling, light bulbs. I remember being in a meeting and I've been working at the company for 10 years, and someone said, tell me the differentiation in your product and why it's unique versus comparative versus holistic. And I'm like, what did you just say? Like, and then when I sort of tried to go my way around it, they were like, so what? And I'm like, again, why you are like, what? And remember getting a little bit defensive, right? And then realizing, gee, that's what I really need to know, right? And once I embraced that, the sales process with the qualification methodology, I was like, damn, I wish I'd known this earlier, right? And now working in cyber sells on features, right? Primarily sells on, my architecture is better than yours. So value selling is the source, right? We have customers now, when we show them things like our view of this is a perspective of what you're going through, and this is probably what we've seen in the industry that you're being faced with problem-wise, and this is the return you can get from working with us. So it's like the, anything Trellix and the case for change, the now. You can see light bulbs go off and they're like, I've been missing that. Can I borrow that? Can I have it? I need to, and then you're off. All right. So that was wish I was brave enough, and I wish I knew what I know now about how to really be audible ready on using the sales process and the qualification programs methodology to be good.
Yeah. I think just generally an observation that I have across the industry around, salespeople as well. Like, nobody woke up when they were 16 and thought, hey, we're leaving school and we're going into sales, right? Then, so yeah, no one ever. But then we all sort of fell into it. And because there wasn't that sales program there that people saw, there wasn't a university degree, we all fell into imposter syndrome. I mean, I remember when I was doing deals with UBS, I was sat on my parents' floor with my printer plugged in, typing on my laptop, because that's what I was doing to get a deal done, right? And I thought, somebody's going to find me out. But I think it's an interesting point around the imposter syndrome, because I think a lot of salespeople suffer with that one, for sure.
We're seeing degrees pop out now, like universities embracing sales degrees. They learn the theory, they don't. So I'm finding again, maybe some of them aren't brave enough to pick the phone up and have a phone call. They'll hide behind an email or a DM, some sort of social media connection. So, and I meet a lot of these kids when they're at school, right? My son's actually doing one. He's a senior doing one at school now. And I'll say the first decision you have to make in your first job is to find a manager who's going to put time and energy into developing you in your career. So like we learned what we did from our manager, right? And from playing with live ammo in the field, right? So when you get that first job, right? Yep, there's the cool shiny company or the greatest product or the coolest industry, but really pick your first manager well. Your first couple of managers they're going to give you the head start. If you get a false start, you're losing time. Get someone that wants to dedicate and commit time to developing your career. That's going to be the secret.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice for anybody that's starting off in their career, because it's just so important. And you never forget those managers who looked after you as well, which is great.
No.
Perfect. So some other questions that we got now flying in. Yeah, which it's just like choice of questions. Thomas, I'm going to leave you a question because you're just trying to get Jason to pick your next guests on your podcast, I think. Trying to get you to work out who's the best medic sellers that you've ever seen. You can hold that one. Just mull that one over for later.
Yeah. Emma Maslen.
Well, yeah, he did exclude me and Kim from that because we're
Oh,
both on
okay.
here. But
Okay.
yeah, we were not allowed to be chosen. But anyway, so Lisa's asked a question, which is hopefully there are lots of sellers out there that are doing their research before reaching out to the CRO. So you talked about some of the things that are really going to make a difference, but wonder if there's maybe an example of, you've granted this lucky seller a meeting. What was the thing that caught your eye? Have you got an example of that?
Yeah, I have. I purchased Gong pretty early on when it, the voice AI capability. So one thing that you and I have kind of loved doing in our careers is using the leading indicators to really work out if someone was doing the right thing, right? You hit the leading indicators, you're on the right path to be successful. The trick was, or how are they recording the leading indicators, right? Are they recording their meetings? And so you get on and you have a look and like, oh, you did 64 meetings this week. Like, well, first of all, fake. Or you did 3. Well, first of all, no, because I know you were doing more than that. So, and then what hit me was they just got on, they somehow worked out that was what my key thing was. And they came in, they had a mock-up, off the top of Salesforce of a rep with, 5 opportunities. And then they just showed the calendar, the meetings, and then the recorded meetings, right? And then they showed me the tag with the keywords on, because I was all about enablement, right? So like, well, there were 5 things you got to say in the meeting. And then they were like, well, they said them all. And you're like, whoa, hold on a second. And I remember thinking, like within 3 minutes, they hit, because those color. I'm red like on those color insight things, right? Like if you don't get me in the first 5 minutes, you ain't got me. I'm back in my email and not kind of listening, right? And the second one was I don't even know if we use it anymore, but there was a product called Brain Shark. Very, very similar, right? Like we were doing so much enablement at the time, it was around about the same time. We just didn't have enough people to test what they were doing, right? And I didn't want to do 20 multiple choice questions. I wanted them to do a live presentation, a live EB call, and then for something to critique the call. And it couldn't be subjective, it had to be qualitative, right? So that would like parse voice. At the time, you can see what I was into, right? Like voice AI stuff, trying to find tools and techniques to do it. But the interesting thing that this rep on the first deal did was he introduced himself. He went through the selling cycle and he warned me, when you make the decision, I'm going to introduce a CSM and I'm going to help you do this deal and I'm going to get you to where you need to be. But I want the CSM to come in because when the deal is done, they're going to own you to being successful. And I thought that was pretty cool. Like this is 7 years ago, 6 years ago. And I think now when I look at the infinity of selling, if you aren't handing off or working out when is my job end and their job begin, and then making sure your customer knows the journey they're going to go on, you get these broken, dead zone windows. That was the other thing that really hit me hard was he introduced me to, this is how you're going to be successful. And this is the person that's going to help you get there.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting insights because, it's definitely things that I know many of us encourage is, it's also a tool to be able to get more meetings, right? Introducing other people into the sales cycle. But there's the inherent fear of handing off, introducing things, introducing risk into the sales cycle. But it's great to understand that actually from a customer's perspective, just reinforcing the fact that it's about your outcomes and getting you to your outcomes. And that's interesting to an economic buyer, because it's not about the rep, it's not about the deal. It's about you getting to the insights and the data that you needed to see whether or not the enablement's working, whether or not you're on the right journey and headed in that right direction.
Yeah, no, perfect.
Yeah. Great. So another question we've got, which is you mentioned the 2 CIO profiles of 5.
Yeah.
Smart lad picked up that you didn't talk about the other 3. What are they?
There we go. Well, so the reason I do it like that is because if you drop the fingers and you show the middle finger, right, that's the hardest profile. So this is someone that chameleons between, finance and techno. So let me just, the one that's really the visionary, that's, you're going to see them want CTO in their title, all right? They want to think of it from technology. And the one that's at the other end, you can look at their profile and you probably see they've grown up through finance. So first of all, these are obvious, all right? It's the one in the middle that is this, And typically they're in extremely large organizations, right? They've got monstrous portfolios that they manage, and they're able to balance the, where are we going and how much is it going to cost, right? They really, and you think of value drivers, right? Like, cost versus strategy, they kind of sit at the opposite of ends of each other. And so although it sounds simple when you say there are 5, I'd say the 3 in the middle are just, this is a person that's trying to be more of a technology person. This is the one in the middle, and I'm going to do what what I wanted to do. That's the hard one, right? That's the one that you have got to be on your game, right? Because you just don't have, with the guy with the tech vision, you just walk in and you talk about your roadmap, right? And you talk about where's the industry going to be in 2 years and how am I going to help you get there? And then on the other side, you go, let me show you an ROI TCO model about how this product's going to give you money, all right? Save you money, make you money, whatever it is. The one in the middle, all right, you gotta be on your game. So I don't know who asked it. It is a good question. It's more of a definition, the way I explain it to people. Like, it's just getting to the right person. That one's the tough one.
Yeah. So yeah, it sounds like a scale. And also that scale, we talk to people about this all the time around, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, right? People are having to adapt their strategies on a fairly regular basis because there's a lot of things going on that are making people flip-flop a little bit, I think. They want to go.
That is the point, right? One day, that's why these EBs in the tech side get moved so often, right? Because a visionary person gets fired when things go wrong in the P&L.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right. That's amazing. Great. Well, I am conscious that you have an economic buyer meeting at past, so you're going to have to go. So just a very quick thank you to say thank you so much for coming on today. It's an absolute pleasure having you. Amazing. Thank you so much. And so if anybody's interested in listening to more from Jason, and we've got a recorded extended version that is available on the platform, so you can go in and have a listen to that. So thanks very much, everybody, for joining today. A pleasure to see you all. And we'll either see you next week for the CMO webinar, or we'll see you on the 10th of January, which is the start of the pipeline generation series. So thanks very much. Thanks, Jason.
Cool. Thanks, Emma. Happy holidays.
Great. Thanks, everybody.